Welcome to the Hybrid Fitness Podcast, where we talk open and honest about all things health, fitness and business. With your hosts, PJ Black and Michael Lennon.
How's it going, guys? So another episode of the Hybrid Fitness Podcast, and today we have another phenomenal guest, Conor Devine. John can't be with us today, so it's just me again. So I'm just going to jump straight in. Conor, thanks for being on. If you just want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, Paddy Joe. So look, thanks for taking the time and thanks for inviting me onto the podcast. My name's Conor Devine and I'm originally from County Tyrone in Northern Ireland. Probably have spent the last 20 odd years living and working and finding a career for myself in Belfast. I started out, I played, immersed myself in sport, mostly soccer and Gaelic football. And I got sick, which we're going to get into, around about 12 years ago. And I struggled for 5 or 6 years. And really over the last 10 odd years, I've been trying to fight back from what we now know as multiple sclerosis. But I think through this last 10 to 12 years, I've been able to reverse the condition. I've had a couple of children in that time frame. I've started my own business in that time frame. I think I spoke to someone recently, Paddy Joe, and I said, in your 20s, you think you can do anything. In your 30s, you realise you can't. Whenever you get into your 40s, you try and do something about it and work out, well, you know, what am I going to be doing over the next 10 to 15 years? So for me personally, you know, I train a lot, I think a lot, I read a lot. And I think I'm the next 5, certainly the next 10 years is the most important part of my life to date, because that will dictate the next 50. I believe I'm going to live to 100, just telling you that. Awesome. But if you break that down, then the next 5 years are going to be the most important 5 years of my life, because I'm currently working on a number of things right now which will create the lifestyle that I want to live and lead over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So quick intro to me and maybe what I'm about.
Awesome. So Conor, I'm just going to jump into it. So tell us about that day, and obviously you're on holiday in Mauritius. I'll let you tell the story. It's just obviously we want this to be based around health and fitness and business and stuff as well. So tell us what happened on that diagnosis, and I'll just let you crack on there.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you the short version because it was an incredible time for me. I was in Mauritius, and the first day I landed there, I was 27 years old. I had played Irish League football from when I was 18. I'm hugely competitive, combative. I'm a winner. I've always wanted to win and try and lead and be vocal. And I was on this beautiful island, and that first morning at breakfast time, my arm went pins and needles. And over the course of the next 24 hours, my body went into, I just lost control of my body. It was numb and went pins and needles everywhere. I was rushed to hospital, spent the next 4 or 5 days in hospital. They thought I had taken a stroke. They thought I had all sorts of stuff going on. And for me personally, it was just a very traumatic time for me. I was, I suppose, at a great age, 27, 28 years of age. I had the whole life in front of me. And I just knew that time, Paddy Joe, that I've been sick before. We all get sick in the flu and you're in bed and all the rest. But I knew that there was something wrong with my body at that point in time. And to give you the really quick version, I flew home a few days later, and I spent the next 12 months more or less at home. At that time, I was a director in a very successful property company in Belfast. I mean, I was just promoted before I went on holiday. I was on a very good sort of financial package. I was very confident. I felt great. I felt fit and strong. And then all of a sudden in Mauritius, I was wiped out. Whenever you have that sort of pins and needles sensation in your body, whenever you get home, typically your GP will send you to a neurologist. I went to the neurologist when I got back, and they said, look, you've probably just been under too much stress. Your body has reacted to something, maybe taking a virus or whatever. Just relax for a few weeks and you should be okay. But that went on for a whole 12 months. And within that 12 months, I became what I've sort of termed a Googleaholic. So I do what we all do, which is we go online and we start looking at what our symptoms are, and have I got cancer? Have I fucking motor neuron disease? Have I got multiple sclerosis? You know, what the fuck's going on in my body? At that time, I had lots of symptoms, including pain all over my body. I had this thing called a lormatitis pain, which is you have like a nerve pain in your neck and the back of your knees and in your arms. I was sort of going back to work for a few days and then taking the next couple of weeks off and then back to work. And I had a real problem with balance at that time. If I was walking in the street, I felt as if I was going to fall. I actually felt, and I haven't done a podcast in probably about 18 months, but I felt at that time that I was dying. I couldn't understand it. I know now that I was going through a pretty much a personal breakdown, because, you know, what I, for the first time ever, realised, I think all of us take our health for granted, and it's one of the things they talk about a lot now. Yeah. And you shouldn't take your health for granted, you know, but and it's just, whenever you realise that you go to your GP and you come out of your GP and you can't go into the chemist to get some medication that's going to fix you, whenever you actually realise that that's just not going to happen, then that's an incredibly difficult moment for anyone. And the longer this thing went on for me, which was 12 months, I started to struggle to accept that I was in really, really bad health. And pretty much about 12 months to the day of the first onset of the, which was a virus which attacked my central nervous system. I know that now, I didn't then. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And over the previous 12 months, MS was something that kept coming up. But I'm a very positive person, and I was just hoping, that day I went to see the neurologist, I was sort of hoping that, you know, despite how I felt the previous 12 months, I was going there that morning for the all clear. I was talking to myself. I was basically saying, look, you're going to be okay. You're going to get stronger. You're going to get better. Your body's going to improve. But in the Ulster Independent Clinic at about 10:30, I walked into his office. We spent about 10 minutes there, and he says, Conor, look, you've got MS. You're going to have it for the rest of your life. You're going to need to get on to a disease-modifying drug, and you're just going to see how things pan out. And it was a very cold process. It was a very cold meeting. There was a lack of information. It was unsensitive. But I now know that that's the process, and that process has not improved. So that's what happened. And pretty much then, I walked out to the car, and I sort of broke down in the car, because the research that I'd done about MS, I mean, I couldn't find any information where there was anything positive at all about an MS diagnosis. I had read statistics like 25% of the people who are diagnosed end up in a wheelchair. I read that it affects people typically in their prime, just like me, a director in a property company playing Irish League football. I'd like to think a good, nice person to be around, a positive person to be around, and all of a sudden I'm wiped out. And that sort of started the process, Paddy Joe, probably, which went on 2 or 3 years then. So for the first 3 to 4 years, I really, really struggled. This was 2006 to about 2010. So in those 4 years, I really struggled with life. I had suicidal thoughts. I struggled to understand what's the point. My physical symptoms were very debilitating. I had a problem with my throat, where I had struggled with swallowing. I had a real problem consistently for years with my head, which was pressure and anxiety in my head, which I now know a lot of this stuff was potentially driven up through my own sort of concerns and worries and anxieties and stress. I had panic attacks where I struggled to breathe. And anyone who's listening or watching this who has had panic attacks, it's an extremely nasty condition to experience. And for 4 years, I had lost all hope. I struggled with the condition, and I felt a burden to anyone around me. How was it going to pay my bills? How was it going to support people? It was just an absolute disaster. And I would say at this point in time in my life, that was pretty much the most difficult 4 years in my life to date. So that was from the age of between probably 27 and 31.
Phenomenal. And I was just about to say, before you hit on there, about like, how did that affect you psychologically and mentally, knowing that, you know, being so physically active and, you know, as you say, at your prime, to potentially, like, how did it affect your work? Did you have to give up your job? What happened?
So basically, around about 2008, the company I was working for at the time, they were very good to me. They told me to take as much time off as you want. So I took more or less, I was off for more or less a year. I then went back to work about 2008, and the entrepreneur in me knew, despite how shite I was feeling and how low and flat I was feeling, the business person in me, there has always been a light, a sort of a flickering in my heart, like in my soul. Like I've always had some form and sense of purpose, and no matter how, I'll contradict myself slightly, but I was so low for so long, but there was always a small thing flickering in the back of my mind that I could fucking beat this thing, and I could be the person that I wanted to be, and I could be successful in business, and I could be healthy, and I could provide for my children, and I could really do whatever I want. My mum, I wrote about this in my first book, Attitude is Everything, but my mum's always said, look, keep going, keep pushing, reach for the high ground. You can, I suppose, Paddy Joe, to give us a bit of context, I was an excellent footballer. I don't mind, I'm not blowing my own trumpet. From I was very young, I read somewhere that to be an expert in something, you needed to clock up at least 10,000 hours.
10,000 hours.
By the time I was 9 years of age, I had 7 hours of training with a football in my hand. You can work that out. I started kicking one at 4. I never had it out of my hand, and I knew it was good at football. And that gave me a sense of liberation and respect and dignity. And I grew up in the changing room, which a lot of your listeners and viewers will understand this, where I think it's a great environment for any young person, male or female, to grow up, because you get so much of competitive spirit within that team environment. And whenever I was fucking on my own, dealing with this MS on my own, I felt that my, I suppose, environment that I kept from I was a young boy right up to I won the All-Ireland Freshers title with Jordanstown. I represented the Irish universities in China. I captained the Ireland team in soccer in the World Student Games. I achieved a hell of a lot. My dream was to play for Manchester United. I had trials in England. I was playing Irish League from 16. So this disease was in this person's body, who was a fighter and who was determined to succeed. And I think it was that spirit that never really left me, even though it nearly did, which gave me the sense that if I just could fucking put a plan in place, stick to the plan, work hard, I could come back and just maybe realize my own potential, beat this fucking thing, have a life, buy a house, have some children. At that time, I had no children. And I think that was really the beginning of a new phase for me, where around about 2010, I was looking for years to find somebody in the world who had MS, but who was actually doing very, very well. Because I couldn't find anybody in Ireland or the UK that was doing well. Anybody I asked about MS, nobody wanted to talk about it. If you go to any of the MS websites, there's people in wheelchairs, sticks. I mean, the whole branding needs totally changed. I'm very passionate about that discussion, which is sort of a different thing. But I found this guy in New York called Montel Williams. And Montel Williams is a former Navy SEAL. He's one of the most celebrated and successful TV hosts in the United States. Yep. Montel also has MS. I started reading his books, listening to his stuff online. And this guy was fucking running marathons. He was doing what you're doing in the gym. He was working out. He was training people. He had a huge company and entertainment. And I was saying, I didn't know you could do any of this. I didn't realize, what do you mean? You can have MS and you can do all these other things. Because I was looking for that person, which is now me here in this part of the world. Because a lot of what I do now is to try and share ideas and share information with people. And I want to be the Montel for people in Ireland and the UK and Europe. Because I wasn't there for me in 2010, because there was no good news stories anywhere, Paddy Joe, about anyone living with MS.
Yeah, it's all, people get their diagnosis and it's all doom and gloom, and there's, as you say, there's nobody out there who's pushing the boundaries to go, well, okay, I'm not going to let this beat me. Do you think that what you were talking about, that work ethic, that competitive spirit is what helped drive you on from? Do you think that was instilled in you from a young age, and that has helped you to obviously push the boundaries of MS?
Absolutely, no doubt about that. I came from the playground, from a sporting environment, from a team environment. I won a lot, I lost a lot, but that competitive nature and competitive spirit, I have no doubt that I know people who I've met in life, who I was friending with maybe when they were young, and I know they didn't have that competitive, boys or girls who maybe didn't get involved in sport and didn't get involved in the team environment for different reasons, because they maybe weren't interested in it. And I'm not saying it was the be all and it's the end all, because some people are creative in art and drama and music and all of those things. But I know for sure that, I mean, as I'm sitting here 40 training for 2 Ironmen in the next 14 weeks, I have no doubt in the back of my mind that it was the environment that I grew up in, which was steeped in being competitive, never giving up, winning, trying your best, fucking working hard. That's in my DNA. So that's what allowed me to start the fight back in 2010 against the MS.
Do you think there's people out there, obviously, who maybe don't have that type of spirit and enthusiasm that could do something, but they're just, as you say, they're in that doom and gloom of the diagnosis, this is a lifetime sentence, it's a burden, there's nothing I can do about this, and that's obviously what you're passionate about, it's just passing that stuff on. Do you see, when you speak to other MS sufferers, that sort of, I can't do anything about this, just more or less giving up?
Yeah, so absolutely. So to clarify as well, because what I'm saying there is I feel privileged that I did grow up in that environment where those skills that I learned at an early age absolutely allowed me to deal with this. But I know that, and I meet people, and it doesn't matter as well, even that if you do grow up it's where you're at now, and how have you developed mentally as a person, and how can you deal with the shite you have to deal with today. Because what I know that each of us have different levels of tolerance, and I know through my business life and through my personal life in dealing with illness and relationship issues, that every single person today is fighting a battle. Every single person, no matter who it is, we're all fighting a war. Some of us are fighting several wars. So how do you deal with that? I mean, I sat in an MS discussion meeting about 5 years ago, and between the years 2007 to 2010, I say to people that I wasted those years because I had thrown in the towel. I didn't come down the stairs in my mum's house for Christmas dinner in 07, 08 and 09 because I didn't want to, because I wasn't feeling well. I didn't want to be a burden on people. I wasn't interested. And I refer, when I talk about this, that those were the 3 years that I wasted. Because if I had found Montel in 2007, I don't think I would have wasted those 3 years. I think my fires would have been lit. Boom, I would have been trying to fight this thing. But I was at a discussion meeting about 3 years ago, and there was all MS patients in the room, and we were all at different levels of ability and disability. But the lady beside me was on a mobility scooter, and I was sharing my story that I had. And this goes for everyone. If you're dealing with mental health issues, or you're dealing with, addiction, or you're dealing with MS, or a relationship breakdown, or a financial breakdown, you have the start of the healing process is to ask for help. And that was the issue, that I didn't want to ask for help. I wasn't ready. I wasn't interested. But the lady beside me that morning in that meeting, I had just shared that I felt as if I was asleep for 3 years. I wasted 3 years. But she told me that her 3-year experience lasted 19 years. For 19 years, she wasn't interested in talking about MS. She wasn't interested in going to an MS support meeting. She wasn't interested in MS blogs or talking to family about it. She was struggling mentally to deal with it, physically to deal with it. But she was asleep for 19 years. Yeah. And I was asleep for 3 years. And I meet people all the time with a range of problems. And what I try to encourage everyone to do is just fucking ask for help. It's the most difficult, but the most easy thing to do. Because I know that by me asking for help, I ran a bloody marathon in 2010, which started an incredible endurance journey, which 8 years in went beyond my expectations. And it's totally changed my life. And that lady who was sitting in great form for 19 years, they were the wasted years. But she had since opened up, shared, started to go back to the gym, started to work on things that she was enthusiastic about, that she wasn't passionate about. 19 fucking years. I couldn't believe it. And that was a big, another turning point for me. Like I've had lots of experiences along this sort of journey of life in the last 10 years, but there's a number of stories that have stuck with me, and I just think that the opportunity for me to speak to you, to speak to one person who tunes into this, or how many, ask for help, reach out, ask for help. It just could change your life.
Yeah, that's not even just going from, a medical background. I find it even just people who are wanting to lose weight, even like for ourselves, we have business mentors, people who mentor us, but the ability to ask someone, like, can you help me? It's almost like an egotistical thing that people just don't want to do it. They don't want to be seen, to be like down or like they're vulnerable. So, I think that's phenomenal advice. Would you say those 3 years were the years where you were at your lowest, that like you couldn't have gotten any lower, the only way was up? Like, as you say there, you didn't want to talk about it, you didn't want to spend time with your family, you were just, speaking to other MS sufferers and maybe seeing all that around you, that competitive spirit comes out and goes, well, I need to do something about this. And was Montel the driving force, or did you have a little bit of a fire lit that you just needed someone to?
Yeah, so whenever I found Montel Williams, the interesting thing was I once I found him, I started to find other people, and people like Mark Pollock from Northern Ireland, the blind adventurer who's paralysed. I read Mark's book, met Mark. The story's incredible. If you've heard of him, if you haven't heard of him, look him up, yourself and your listeners. Seen what Mark went through, and the way I sort of justify my experiences in life is I try and find people who have went through similar or more difficult experiences, and then try and work out, well, how did they react to that, and then try and learn and pick and choose of what skills or what tools they've brought into their own life. So I seen Mark Pollock's story. Then I found a little guy called Nick Vucevic. Nick Vucevic has no arms and no legs, and I started to find his stuff on YouTube, and I started to go, well, fucking hang on a minute here. This fucking guy's got no arms and no legs. He's fucking packing out arenas all over the place. He's sharing with people his experiences of what that's been like. And then, to be honest with you, I started to find a range of people who had MS, who didn't have MS, who were blind, who had all sorts of adversity in their life, but were using the adversity and the experience that they had to share a very positive story of recovery with others, and to inspire and motivate others that despite adversity, you can go on and realize your own potential. And for me, that was very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And the question then is, how do you turn a negative into a positive in a very basic level? And I started that process, how could I actually do that? And the only way that I could do that, Paddy, because I'm not a bullshitter, like I'm very, very real. I'd like to think I'm humble. Because I've dealt with a lot of stuff, and I've done an awful lot of work on myself over the last, particularly 3 to 5 years, particularly the last 18 months. And I think if you're authentic, and I think if you put a plan in place and then you start getting the rewards of that plan, then you have a story to tell. And it was probably, if you fast forward from 2010 to 2013, I had ran 2 or 3 marathons at that time. And the reason why I wanted to run a marathon was because I wasn't finding many people online who had MS and were running marathons. And for me, I was compelled to run a marathon and then tell people about it. Yeah. Because I knew if I could connect with people anywhere, because what I know, especially in Northern Ireland, UK, there's fucking tons of people being diagnosed with MS and other diseases all the time. And we're constantly conditioned to believe you can't do this and you can't do that, you can't do this. And it's all bullshit. So what I wanted to do was, if I could run a marathon, people would go, fuck me, your man up in Belfast, like, he's only after running the Belfast, he's just London, he's doing New York, that fella.
Yeah.
I am intuitive, and maybe that's my entrepreneurship and my business background, but I knew that if I had a genuine, true story of recovery to tell, then that could change and impact a lot of lives right across the world. And that is my driving force to this very day, because with which we'll get into now, I've done in the last few years with the 2 books and the endurance events and all the bits and pieces that has happened, for me, I feel as if I'm starting another journey. which is sharing information with a wider group of people, which is great.
Yeah, and it as you say there, it ends up becoming bigger than you, because you're just the catalyst, hopefully, that sparks those people into obviously doing a little bit more. That's great. Something that popped up, which I'm really interested to hear about, is on your website you've been able to reverse your MS through a plant-based diet and with daily exercise. So would you like to tell us sort of what you do with your nutrition? I know you say you don't take any more medication, do you, for MS?
Yeah. So what happened? I suppose, I think where I'm at in with my MS in particular, I'm a walking trial. Every day I'm trying to work with people with MS. It's a central nervous system problem, and your central nervous system in your brain controls your whole body. So people who are in wheelchairs, for example, the messages aren't going to the legs to move. That's what happens. There's been a problem with the central nervous system. There's sensory issues around the MS, and then there's movement issues. All of my issues were sensory, right? So what I was doing, Paddy Joe, I was experimenting and researching for years the best diet for someone with MS. And there's lots of science in this, which Dr. Swank, who basically examined hundreds of people on a fruit and vegetable diet where there was low saturated fat, no meat, no dairy. And the outcome of that trial, which was 30 years ago, was that most people who engaged in that low saturated fat, high content fruit and vegetables tend to have better outcomes in terms of how they were feeling with their MS. So the first thing that I binned in the last 2 or 3 years was dairy, because there's quite a bit of science out there for people who have MS that if you continue to take dairy, because it's high in cholesterol and saturated fat, based on the science, that's not good for people with MS. So I said, right, fuck this, dairy's going. Because whenever you're sick, Paddy Joe, you'll pretty much go anywhere and do anything to try and get better. So for me, if there was science out there saying the dairy has to go, the dairy had to go. So I did that about 3 years ago. And then I came across a doctor in Australia called George Jelinek, who has produced this book called Overcoming MS. And that's like my Bible, my nutritional Bible. And his program was basically a diet high in fruit and vegetables, again, no saturated fat going in, and vitamin D, and then some fish, right? So that was pretty much where he was at. I think about 2 years ago then, for me, diet is all about education, because you're in the sort of nutritional game, you're in the fitness industry, and there's a lot of opinions out there about what diets, paleo and keto and all sorts of stuff. And the way I sort of operate, because people, I think, start to turn off, if they haven't turned off already, whenever people start to pontificate about what you should and shouldn't be eating, right? You should be eating meat, you shouldn't be eating meat, you should be eating dairy, right? So people get pissed off because we all love our food, and I love my food. So what I decided to do was I decided to engage in serious amount of research, which included reading books and also watching documentaries on Netflix. And the turning point for me in my own journey, and this week I'm 2 years plant-based nutrition, so I don't eat meat or dairy. Anything with a head or a central nervous system, I don't eat. I just fill my body full of fruit and vegetables and nuts and seeds and all the good stuff, which is not controversial, right? So I just talk about it like that. But once I watched Forks Over Knives on Netflix, that was a turning point for me, because I found doctors like Caldwell Esselstyn. I found doctors like Dr. Colin Campbell and Michael Greger and Michael Capper and all these guys who are in pretty much west coast of America. I started looking into their work, their credibility, integrity is something I'm interested in. And that led me on to other documentaries on Netflix and reading some more literature. So what happened after about 2 years, Paddy Joe, I decided that I would give this plant-based nutrition diet a go. And 2 years into that program, and the main reason was that I knew that I wanted to bin foods that were high in cholesterol and high in saturated fat, and meat and dairy are sort of in that space. So thankfully, the good news is that 2 years into the plant-based diet, I stopped my medication 2 years ago this week. I started a full plant-based diet 2 years ago this week, and my MS symptoms have reduced and been neutralized a lot. I haven't had any real MS symptoms in the last 4 or 5 months. All of last year I had intermittent MS symptoms, but over the last 2 or 3 months, 4 or 5 months, I'm in the best health that I've ever been. And personally, I put that down to my nutrition program and my exercise regime. And that's a personal tale. That's something that's personal to me. That's not going to guarantee that it'll happen to anyone else. But it's certainly a work in progress. But I have to say, I'm really enjoying the process. I'm enjoying the discipline that's brought into my life. And one of the things, once you start to eat, I don't like the word clean, but a lot of fruit and vegetables every day and nuts and seeds, all that kind of good stuff, which obviously goes straight into the cells and the mitochondria and helps all of that rejuvenate. You immediately within a month, Paddy Joe, get incredible mental clarity. Your head just clears. And I just felt something lifting in me in terms of my own mental health and how I was feeling very quickly into the plant-based diet. But most people who are on that regime, that's one of the first things they do share with people, that this incredible sort of mental clarity that overcomes them. So look, no, thankfully I'm physically feeling great. I'm in good form. I'm running the business, which is quite active. I have 2 young kids, and so far, touch wood, I'm a totally different human to when I was. We just covered it 5 or 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's again, nutrition is a massive passion of mine, and there was just something I wanted to get your take on, because I see a lot of sensitivities in this day and age. Obviously the 5 main ones that we experience a lot, especially when dealing with nutrition: gluten, wheat, dairy, nuts, and eggs. Myself personally, dairy, I don't tolerate that well, and I've done my own experiments. And I just love the fact that you said it's a trial, because at the end of the day, you're trying to do everything you can to possibly manage condition, get better. So sometimes the science is nowhere near where you're at. It hasn't caught up, and you do just got to try stuff. And for me, I remember taking dairy out at one point. A typical bodybuilding, maybe somebody who goes to the gym's diet is pretty high in protein, high in whey protein. I'd have been eating my meals, I'd have been having protein shakes, protein bars, protein yogurts, whatever it was. And I just felt sinusy, I felt blocked up, I felt, I was holding more water, a little bit more inflammation. And so I replaced those calories. I took out the dairy myself. I felt, a million times better. And then just based on, what you were saying, meat can be very acidic to the body. So I come in with an open mind. I've just had a few people, I'm a massive believer in functional medicine. I believe nutrition can help with a lot of problems. And one of the reasons why I really did want to get you on was that take on the fact of, we had a doctor on before who says, when you come in, you display these symptoms, then you're put in a box. And then how do we treat that box? We treat that box with this medication. Whereas at some point, I think you have to look for another way. And you find a lot of it with, maybe cancer patients, people who've been, I don't want to say given their last rites, but they've nowhere else to turn. And they maybe then go, well, I got to research something, or I got to find something. And there's some incredible stories out there where nutrition has helped people mentally, physically, overcome certain things. So I'm a massive believer in that. And that was obviously an area that I really wanted to sort of hear your views on.
Look, I'm hugely passionate about this. And this is important, what I'm going to say. Medication is designed to manage disease, right? Not induce health.
Yeah.
So medication is designed to manage disease, not induce health. It took me 9 years myself to work out that this injection that I was putting into my backside every single night was not going to repair my body's physiology.
Yeah.
Why did it take 9 years for me to work that out myself? Why did nobody tell me that? Because I was the rabbit in the wheel, and you go into the system that says, take that medication and take it for the rest of your life. And that, for me, over the last 2 years, I have had my eyes open. Medication was designed to manage disease badly. So where are they now? And I will get a bit passionate about this in terms of dealing with cancer. Fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
No further on. They're not. They're just not. And it's the same with MS. It's the same, I mean, one of the big conflicts of interest at the moment, the role of pharmaceutical companies and the influence of pharmaceutical companies in the world at the moment is now unhealthy. The role of pharmaceutical companies and the relationships they have with their charities is unhealthy. There's a conflict of interest. And what I'm trying to do, about 3 weeks ago, about a month ago, a guy in Canada made a documentary film called Living Proof, where he talks about the role nutrition has to play in MS patients, how the pharmaceutical companies have basically taken over the whole MS discussion. I mean, I used to, between 2012 and 2014, one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world employed me to go and talk at some of their events in Barcelona, Vienna, Budapest, and Belgium. And they wanted me to speak to a room full of MS patients and pharmaceutical people to share my journey of recovery. I was happy at that time, Paddy Joe, to do that because I was taking their medication, and it suited my development at that time. Now, I knew at that time that the same company were looking Jack Osborne, and they got Jack Osborne. And the bottom line is that I now know that my medication was not managing my disease, and how I've been able to repair and recover from MS is through, in my personal experience, me lighting up the mitochondria and the cells through the nutrition that I'm taking on board every single day. Because there's a doctor in America called Terry Walls who, for 4 years in the late 90s, she got diagnosed with MS. She was actually a neurologist, and she was on every drug God sent, and her decline was just consistent. The drugs weren't helping her at all. And she decided to stop the drugs and to go on a diet which was high in fruit and vegetables and nutrition that was complementary to brain health, right? And what she basically explained, for anybody who's listening, Google Terry Walls. She does a TEDx talk, and there's 20 million people have watched it for 19 minutes. But what she was saying is, if she changed, if she stopped the medication and trialed this by taking on nutrition that was complementary to brain health, which would then fire up the mitochondria in the cells, because when all of our cells die, we're dead. So what keeps the cells alive is the mitochondria. And I'm not a nutritionist, but I understood this much. So how do you light the mitochondria up? How do you keep it healthy? Through nutrition, your nutrients, your minerals, and whatever. But interestingly with Dr. Walls was that whenever she went on this high fruit and vegetable diet, complementary to brain health diet, her decline stopped, and within 2 years she was cycling to work. So Dr. Terry Walls is now all over the American news channels. She's got a book called The Walls Protocol, and she's now talking about the same and has experienced the same recovery that I have on my plant-based diet. She's just about 6 years ahead of me. So I don't tell people that you should go vegan or go plant-based. What I say to people is keep an open mind and do the research, because even in my business life, Paddy Joe, I find that if you break it down for people into simple format, right, then most people are smart enough to work it out for themselves. That's just my view. And what I did last night on Facebook, for example, was I shared some information around Living Proof, the documentary, with people. And what I do constantly on my social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or whatever, is I just share information with people. I don't say you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the other, because I think people are wise enough that if they actually see the information, then they can make their own calls on it.
Yeah, instead of sort of like ramming it down their throat or talking about it. It's the same, currently at the minute, the stuff that I would do, and I mentioned it on my Instagram there a few days ago, was I use intermittent fasting. Now, people talk about these health benefits of autophagy, which is cell cleansing, cell regeneration, like all the health benefits. And it's a case of the only reason why I do that is it stops me from my life revolving around food. So I'm pretty busy. I'm usually in the gym from 6 a.m. in the morning till, way past this time, working on my business. And the fact that if I can take a step back and just do what I need to do, and also the fact that it suits my life, as opposed to, what I really get peed off with was other coaches who would hand everyone a bog standard template of do this, do that. And it just annoyed me. And there is a way for everybody, and there's a way for people. And I think, what you were saying earlier, I think the reason why the information on plant-based diets and stuff wasn't coming up, or you didn't know what to do, you didn't know why you were putting an injection in you, is lack of education. Like, no one knows. You look at your peers or you look at doctors and you're assuming they know better. And
Well,
so you're just going without advice.
So the problem with that is that 5% of the doctors' training, if 5% is in nutrition.
Yeah.
And the system at the moment is basically our doctors are the sales reps for the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, the country's running about on beta blockers and antidepressants. Prescriptions are going out. I mean, I think it's something, I mean, that maybe I didn't plan getting into, but in terms of what I've learned over the last 5 years, and I'm living this every day in terms of my own sort of journey of recovery, I think there's a huge space for, one of the challenges I put to the pharmaceutical company 3 years ago, which was my last talk, and I'm not surprised because I wanted to challenge the room. Anytime I speak, I try and leave a message. And it was, I asked the room, and the head of Europe for one of the biggest pharma companies in the world was in the room at the time. And I asked them why there was a disconnect between the unconventional approach to dealing with MS and the conventional medicine approach to dealing with MS. Why is there a disconnect between the two? Because there should be a joint up approach, and that we should all be promoting that. And it's the same for all illnesses. I mean, where medicine has worked is in pain relief. So if you lose your arm tonight and your fucking arm's hanging off and you're in the end, they'll deal with the pain, right? They've got great pain relief, great painkillers and stuff. But they haven't cracked managing disease. So if you look at all the diseases out there, if you look at mental health at the moment, huge issues there around how they're using big pharma to deal with that. It doesn't work. It's just not working. If you look at MS, if you look at cancer, there's been no development in cancer or progress in the last 100 years. There just hasn't once you actually get into the science. So I think it's a big discussion point. I think more and more people are becoming more interested in it. And I think for me personally, I'm passionate about it because I'm actually living through an illness. I've reversed an illness and I've went on to achieve some stuff in endurance that proves that I'm not a phony, I'm not a fake, I'm actually doing stuff.
Yeah. There's an awesome documentary. I'm sure you've seen it on Netflix, Food Matters. Yeah,
so I've watched Food Matters. I've watched Food Choices documentary. It's a guy, Michael Sibierski, who's got a new film coming out this year. I've actually filmed a piece in that new film that's coming out. So, I mean, people say to me, well, what should I watch or what should I read? And I just say, look, have a look at Forks Over Knives, have a look at What the Health, which was very controversial, but I know the two lads who made it, I know what they were trying to do. They made Conspiracy Theory with Leonardo DiCaprio, Food Matters, Food Choices documentary. There's a couple of new vegan programs coming out, docs, this year. This is exploding. And I think it's a good thing that these documentaries are coming out because I just don't think that it's controversial. I know people love their meat and all this, but I think whenever Jamie Oliver's now coming out with stuff, the trend is changing. I think it's not controversial. First, I mean, I have a plant-based house. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. And the transition in my home over the last 18 months has been incredible just to watch we people deal with plant-based nutrition in the house. If there's anything a gift that I give to my children, it's the appreciation of fruit and vegetables and the importance of that in their diet, because you're probably like me, we never really grew up with that. It wasn't part of. Now, you used to have meat on a Sunday 30 years ago as a bit of a treat, the roast. Your mum and dad would say, well, have a roast on Sunday. Now you fucking meat every day.
Yeah.
And what we know, once you drill into that, the way we are living at the minute in the world, and believe it or not, once you start getting into plant-based and you get to where I'm at in my personal life, you start thinking about, what am I doing here? How can I contribute to make the world a better place, my workplace a better place? The way I eat at the moment is the most ethical, it's the most sustainable, and I personally believe the healthiest. So for me personally, that's 3 good reasons for me to get up in the morning and do my little bit, what I can, to make this place a better place. So I'm just passionate about it, Paddy Joe, and once you actually hit on something that works for you, be it a system for your business or a health program or whatever, then it's easier to stick to it.
Yeah, and you like to tell sort of people about it and about your experience. Yeah. So we'll move on to the exercise. So what what was it that drove you to want to do, you know, marathons, triathlons, Ironmen? You know, what's, as you say, they're going from a team sport to like a sport that is very, very singular focused. Like, how did your mindset have to change to sort of shift in with that?
So what happened was I was asked around about 2013. I wrote my first book, Attitude Is Everything, my MS story, and I wrote that because after I'd done a few marathons, it was a way for me to get the message out, self-publish it, great experience, get it on Amazon, fucking hell, all over the world. One person in Australia might read this, I could be their Montel Williams. Yeah. That build up of 7 years of, you know, the 3 years that I was asleep, didn't, you know, I wasn't awake, I'd given up. My motivation to write that book was to try and help some people. I got a phone call from the Late Late Show, as you know, it's probably Ireland's premier show. I went down and I spoke to Tuberty about it. And then that weekend, Paddy Joe, I got hundreds of messages. And I knew then that the penny dropped, that my life was going to change. That I had went from the guy with MS to the guy who had a very powerful story of recovery who could help people. Because literally I got hundreds of emails from patients, from cousins, from partners of people who were saying, you know, maybe Kieran's up in bed, he wouldn't watch the Late Late tonight, but I've taped it for him and I'm going to try and get him to watch it tomorrow, and your story's great. And I just became overwhelmed, Paddy Joe, at that time. So you asked me a direct question. I then figured out that if I continued on with the endurance feats, then that would be my business card to the world around getting some, I suppose, sharing a positive story of someone who's living with that kind of illness. So I thought if I could do a marathon, then that would be a powerful story for the MS world. And then I said, fuck, if I could do a triathlon, you know, swim, biking and running, I mean, that would be pretty cool as well. And that would give people some hope. And then obviously I did a couple of triathlons, and then I did a massive, I mean, one of my favorite books is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I read it every year. Incredible book. It's a personal development book. It's not a business book. But I did a gold session in 2014, and I just seen the Ironman, and I wrote it down, and I researched it, and I decided that was something I was going to aim for in 2015. And whenever I was doing my research, I couldn't find anyone else, Paddy Joe, in the world who had MS who had done an Ironman. And I goes, fuck me, I could be the first person in the world to do an Ironman, right? With fucking MS, you're not even supposed to be able to walk with this thing. I'm talking about swimming 2.4 miles, cycling 112 miles, and then a marathon all in one day. I mean, that's impossible. So I started to program my brain and my mindset and work on that. I started to work out what was entailed, the training program, the regime, nutrition, all that stuff, how to go into this. And that's what I decided to do. And thankfully, I hit that goal in September 2015 by completing the full Ironman in Palma, which was an incredible experience.
Awesome. Would you, just on that, something just popped into my head as you were talking there, would you do any sort of breathing drills? I know something that's really getting popular now in the fitness industry and probably the whole world is the Wim Hof method. Are you familiar with that?
So I've came across Wim Hof with his cold treatment and ice baths and living in cold climate and experiencing. For me personally, I don't know what it is about, because I'm very lean, but it's too painful for me, the cold. Yeah. See, I don't know where it's my central nervous system, Paddy Joe, but I couldn't do. I know some guys on Instagram and I haven't given it a chance, right? But I am aware of. But I'd nearly rather do an Ironman than fucking do a Wim Hof weekend. Do you know what I mean?
I think I'm the same. Like whenever the cold treatment was pitched to me, I was like, I'll do the breathing, I'll do the hyperventilating, I'll do the holds, because I want to. As you were talking there about the mitochondria and cells, the fact that we can oxygenate our body, oxygenate our cells, get our body more efficient. But the cold treatment, I was just like, I'll give that a pass. I don't like the cold treatment personally either.
This is a good point you're making, and this is something that I think is really important. That you have to want to do the Wim Hof training.
Yeah.
You have to want to run the 5K. You have to want to do the Ironman. You have to want to set up a new business. You have to want the new relationship. What the fuck do you want? This is the whole point.
Yeah.
Because you can't be all things to all men. And I know so many people who, for whatever reason, say, yeah, I'm going to run a marathon and then I'm going to do a 10K. And then they stop. That's it. And then they fall back off because they don't have the motivation, the discipline. It wasn't a good enough route. So how many people, the amount of people who engage with me now online to say, God, you want plant-based. Why are you doing that? And well, here's why I'm doing it. It's the most sustainable. It's the most ethical. It's the healthiest way to food, to fuel. And here, go and have a look at them documentaries. If you haven't a big enough why, this is getting in a wee bit deeper, it's all about the why, the what, and the how. So, why are you doing this? The reason that I did the Ironman, I had a number of reasons. Was number one, if I could do this endurance event, which is recognized as one of the most difficult in the world in terms of endurance, that would prove to me I would get an awful amount of confidence from me achieving that feat, right? So personally, the confidence, the discipline that it would bring into my life, the sense of achievement, the belief with living with this every day, the stillness, and achieving that Ironman dream, it would just blow my mind. So that was I had a massive why for that.
Yeah.
And I think anything that I do now, there has to be a reason for it. I don't do stuff I'm not overly interested in. I don't speak to people I'm not overly interested in. I'm very conscious of my time. I'm very conscious of who I spend time with, what I'm reading. Are they adding value to me? Is it enriching my life? Is it making me healthier? Is it making me happier? I'm reading a book at the moment by Dan Buettner called The Blue Zones. And this is interesting because Dan Buettner is a fascinating guy. He spent 15, 20 years of his life going around the world. And there's places all over the world. Have you heard of blue zones?
No, I haven't.
So a blue zone there's a number of blue zones across the world, and they hold the most amount of centenarians per head, right? So people who have lived to 100 and plus are in these blue zones. Yeah. And Buettner identified all these, and they're all now labeled blue zones, like parts of Italy and Costa Rica and other parts, Denmark. There's loads of blue zones, but in this book, it's all about happiness and how these people have lived to 100 and what they've done day in, day out. And it's just fascinating. And for me, where I'm at in terms of my own life today, and I'm always trying to add value to anyone I'm with and then bring value into my own life. And I just think this is an incredible journey where you're at with the podcast, where I'm at talking to you. And then the opportunity through the internet of sharing positive stories of recovery and enriching other people's lives. But certainly with Dan Buettner's stuff and Blue Zones, again, that's another bit of information that people listening may just type it in and have a look at it. It's a fascinating read. It's a fascinating piece of research and work.
Yeah, I think I might have seen some stuff in that there, and the fact that the people who live past that age, a lot of it will come down to community and their role in the community and the fact that they're respected. I know I was just at a seminar, Upgrade Your Life with Pat DeVilly there on Saturday, and he was talking about, I think it was called Icky Man. Obviously, pronunciation is probably atrocious. And their concept was a mother, an elderly woman dies and she goes up to her ancestors. Her ancestors ask, who are you? And she says, I'm a mother of four. She says, we didn't ask who you were a mother of, we asked who are you? So they wouldn't let her in and say, well, I'm a teacher. Well, I didn't ask what your profession was. I asked, who are you? And this went on until they got a satisfactory answer of, I'm the woman that curbs the minds of the new or the young ones, obviously being a teacher, until they thought that's acceptable. And they went, we don't want you here. This is an old proverb, obviously. Sent her back down, and the person didn't die. They end up coming up and reliving. So it was almost like a reborn thing. And I read something, the fact that the people who are living to, as you say, those blue zone ages have a role in their society. They have a purpose for living, which I think is the massive thing. And what you were saying there about your why, Simon Sinek has an awesome book about that, Find Your Why. And what was the other one that just popped into my head? Some of the other books that we would listen to, Complete Ownership, a lot of personal development stuff as well, was something we're really interested in.
So that's you should have a look at Buechner's stuff, because the stuff that you're talking about, these people who are living 100+ years have a real sense of purpose, have a sense of community, have a sense of connection. And I mean, addiction is something that has impacted my family in a horrendous way. It's something I don't talk about too much. But one of the best podcasts I've ever listened to is between Dr. Gabor Mate and Rich Roll. Rich Roll is someone who I've looked up to for the last couple of years. He's a plant-based endurance recovering alcoholic, and the people, the amount of people who are affected by addiction in Ireland and the UK is incredible. And how do you treat addiction? And what Mate says, just back on your sense of connection, is, you know, people who suffer from addiction or say his name is John is an alcoholic, or John is a drug addict. Gabor Mate would say John is someone who suffers terribly but is self-medicating through alcohol. And it's peeling back the layers. And if you look at how we treat things like addiction in society now, where there's a huge disconnect with people who are suffering, and back to people who live the longest and the healthiest are those that have the connectivity, who have the purpose, who have the community, as opposed to isolation.
Yeah.
So I think for me personally, I'm on the journey of life, like of self-discovery, of reaching out and reading and listening to people and trying to understand all of this, to try and enrich my own life, and then those which I impact and can impact and share information with. So no, I'm enjoying the exchange, and I know of Pat Dovely as well. I've heard him speak a couple of times, and he's doing some good stuff.
That leads into something I wanted to ask about as well. Is our mission statement with Hybrid is, and again to an extent, the fitness brand business, is to educate and impact as many people as possible. You know, we want to talk to people about, when, you know, in the fitness industry, if you pay for a personal trainer, you should be learning, you should be educating your clients. If not, you know, they're going to have to invest their money again over. And your mission statements I have here: to inspire and motivate people across the world to overcome adversity and realize their potential through plant-based nutrition and exercise. And I just for anybody who's just listening, we were talking when we were organising this call, and Conor was like, I'm very passionate about this, and my mission statement is, as you say, your why. Because if you don't have a why to get out of bed in the morning, as you say, I think your journey is almost bigger than you now. We found that, or I found that with when I was talking to Phil Graham, and he was talking about his diabetic community. It's outgrown him. The community of people who are coming together, and probably the same with the MS community, coming together and realizing that there is people like yourself, Montel Williams, people who are inspirations, people who are not going to sit down and take, you know, the diagnosis with, you know, a spoonful of sugar and just go, okay, that's a lifetime burden. They're willing to do something. They're willing to push people. So, you know, your mission statement, I think, is awesome. And how do you try and get that across to people? You know, I know we're on here and we're talking about it, but how do you pass that on? How is it just the exercise? Is it the feats that you're trying to encourage people to do? What is it?
So I think there's a couple of things in that. My mission statement you've read out, and I think a mission statement for anyone, be it a business, personal thing, a website, or maybe I think everybody should have a personal goals and personal missions and stuff. But you read that out, and it took you about 15 seconds, and that's okay. And it's nice words and all that, but it fucking took me 10 years to come up with that mission statement. I went through so much adversity and turmoil and pain and anxiety and stress to come up with that mission statement. And it's really where I'm at the moment, because I do believe that this isn't an MS discussion. This is about surrounding yourself with people who enrich and add value to you, no matter where you are in the world. I think life is now difficult. It's tough. I realize that I'm 40, but I've never been more enthusiastic or excited about life. You know, I've went through a disastrous 12 years. Personally, from a health position, from a relationship perspective, I've had lots of stuff going on, but I'm just really, really excited now about the future. And you said, what's my motivation and how I sort of live. I live my mission statement every day by my actions. So, you know, I'm training every day. I'm swimming. I'm cycling. I'm running. I'm eating well. I'm posting on my Instagram account because it keeps me honest. It keeps me disciplined. I'm authentic and I'm real. And I think if you're doing something, I think there's a lot of people doing lots of things at the moment. And I think it's important to, you know, if you're doing anything, you have to really believe it. It's the stickability. I mean, I'm doing this for years. So, I mean, my story's starting to get out. I'm doing some stuff over the next 3 months. I've done a few podcasts with people in the UK and America in the last couple of months that are going online soon. And it's not about me anymore. I don't really care. I stopped caring what people think about me in primary school. Genuinely, I'm not trying to be funny. I don't care. I have a small group of people around me. Anybody who knows me through my sort of personal or business life, I think I'm okay. And I just think it's important to have some key core principles if you're going to do anything in life. And at the core of all that has to be integrity. You know, you have to do a self inventory of yourself. I think if you're not honest and decent and have core principles, I think it'll fizzle out. You'll close down, you'll go and do something else. You'll be out of this industry in 6 months, 12 months, 3 years. You get totally fucked off with it. You'll fall out with everybody and you'll end up doing something totally different. So, like for me, I've been on an incredible journey from 2006. It's like 14 years, 12 years with living with MS. But I'm excited about the next sort of 10 years, Paddy Joe, because I mean, I have a lot of stuff that I think I want to do in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm excited about, you know, what really motivates me.
Conor, what is your challenge now? Not to say obviously MS is not your challenge, but what is your aspirations? What is your goals in those next 3 to 5, 10 years?
So a mate of mine who's sort of tentatively, you know, watching me what I'm doing, and there's quite a few people jumping into my stuff and looking, and as I say, it's very uncontroversial. But what really excites me and enthuses me is a mate of mine messaged me last week and said, look, I think I'm going to give this plant-based nutrition a go for 3 months. And I was going, fucking happy days, man. Fair play to you, that's fantastic. And I get messages often online from MS patients, from other people who are fighting some sort of adversity. Everybody's looking just at a little bit of hope, right? So if I've worked out that in business and in life, people want hope as a commodity, right? It's like Bitcoin, it's like money, it's like traveler's checks. Hope is a commodity, right? So if I can do through an Ironman or through walking and swimming and running, if I can bring and give people this, what I'm saying is a commodity, right? Then fucking happy days. That's amazing. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to do it through what I've been doing. So I've 2 books out. I've got the book went out in audio last month. I really want to get into making some documentaries and some films. I'm racing in Barcelona in 6 weeks' time. I'm taking my team over. We're going to make a small short film on that. I just want to share information with the world, with the community. I want to build a tribe, a community of people who are interested in changing their lives, who are interested in improving themselves, who are interested in getting outside of their comfort zone, who are interested in doing stuff that they don't want to do. Because I know, Paddy Joe, that, you know, if you keep doing yourself what you're doing over the next 5 years, you get completely pissed off. So podcasting is something that was started about 5 years ago, and now there's lots of people doing podcasting, and now we're doing your video in it as well. So you're always trying to get a USP and add value to, because people don't have the concentration spans now of goldfishes. So if somebody's still listening to us talking over an hour, they're completely mental listening to me like for over an hour. But I think the window for us to make an impact on people is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, even though it's massive, because there's so much competition. So how I'm going to do it is I'm just going to keep walking the talk, doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep goal setting. I'm going to keep getting out of my comfort zone, keep doing things that people think I can't do. You know, that's certainly something that gets me up in the morning and challenges me.
Yeah, awesome. And for me, like, I knew, you know, the fitness industry for me always had a shelf life, and I knew that from the start. And it was the next logical step for me was, as you were saying there, in a different way, is for me to give back. And that's what I do when, you know, I'm educating the next group of personal trainers coming through. It gives me a purpose. I love standing in front of people. I love speaking. I love talking about nutrition. I love educating people. I still, you know, read a ton of books. I still spend a lot of money educating myself, and to a different degree, you know, I try and live that life as well, and try and do that, and try and, you know, with your story, it's very powerful and it impacts a lot of people. And I try and do the same, but obviously in a different way. So, no, I like that approach. And I just have a quick question for you. For those on a plant-based diet who want to lose weight, you know, our industry is obviously weight loss. I usually find I usually deal with vegetarians and vegans quite a lot. What's your take on, you know, plant-based diet and weight loss and stuff as well? Because I have dealt with a few people who have potentially been underweight. I've dealt with a few people who are actually overweight. You know, mainly because a lot of this stuff will revolve around carbohydrate-based foods.
Well, it depends. So I'll just give you the real sort of someone who's living the plant-based diet, sort of, because there's plant-based is pretty much like vegan diet, right? It's very close, but you can have a junk vegan diet. I mean, I see people and speak to people often when I'm out and about, and I just don't buy into the whole, you know, the whole vegan culture, the stereotypical cool, you know, all that sort of stuff. It's just not what I'm about. I'm plant-based because predominantly health reasons, which has now pivoted me into ethical and sustainability issues, which I feel good about. I just keep it simple, Paddy Joe. I think people who regularly eat vegetables and fruit and drink lots of water, I just can't see them putting on lots of weight.
There's if there's anything that every nutritionist, every dietitian in the world can agree with, is you should be eating fruit and veg. I think that's a given, regardless of the fucking nutrition protocol. Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. The junk vegan diet of, you know,
it's bullshit. Like, you know, I mean, it's so not controversial. Like, you're not going to put on weight eating. Like tonight, I had, you know, like a mixed sort of bean salad with broccoli and chickpeas and kidney beans and all sorts of stuff with basmati rice. I mean, you could eat that to coming out of your ears, and I'm not a nutritionist, but I'm just saying to you, if you're eating a diet high in vegetables, and there's tons of stuff you can eat, but you have to, number one, want to do it, and then number two, make a bit of an effort, right? So get out of your comfort zone and buy the books and research and spend the time. Most people won't do this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I've spoken to lots of people over the years, and they want it all, but they want to do no work, right? So you go to any business person, they want the big car and the big house, but they won't do the fucking work. So who's the hardest worker I know at the moment? That anybody, I mean, I'm doing personal development stuff all the time, but one of the guys who I've been watching, who I wasn't overly fussed on, but I'm warming to him, but he works hard, is Gary V, right? And Vaynerchuk is on the money in terms of a lot of stuff. I don't agree with how he says it and all that, but once you drill into him, especially if you're looking to build a business at the moment and online and digital and all that stuff, you need to be on to his stuff. And it all comes down, a lot of it, to hard work. So, you know, I know that there's loads of MS patients out there who won't do the work. There's nobody has worked harder. People say to me, Paddy Joe, and I take a lot of pride in this, and they say it to me a lot, and it makes me feel happy. Fuck, you're looking really, really well.
Yeah.
I was in an office in Belfast the other day, and he goes, "Fuck, you're looking great. You look really fit." I says, "Thanks very much." And I felt like saying, "Do you know how fucking hard I work to get like this? Do you know how, like, I'm training every day. I'm eating stuff that I used to not want to eat. It's taken me a long time for my taste buds to, you know, I have put in the hard yards. I mean, I'm a billionaire in terms of health at the moment, right? In terms of health, in terms of the effort I've put in with my nutrition and my exercise, that's how I feel. But most people in life, Paddy Joe, won't do the work. They just won't do it. It's a fact. But they want all the benefits that come with that. And that's down to a relationship. Are you putting the work into the relationship you're in at the minute? If you're not, it's probably not going to work. Your business, are you working harder than everybody else you know? Because if you're not, then your chances of making it is less. And then your health. So how hard are you working at your health? Most people I know are like me and don't do anything about their health until they get sick. And what I often say when I'm speaking at an event on Sunday is, don't be like me. Don't wait to get sick till you take action. Take action now. And a lot of what I do, Paddy Joe, we've talked for an hour, is I share all this information to so-called healthy people, right? Because I don't want them to get sick first until they make massive changes or major changes in their life or think about making changes. I think we should make the changes now. So
there's a massive thing. I had my students in yesterday, and when I talk about nutrition, I actually talk about the behavioral change model and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I go into more psychological stuff because, you know, behavioral change, the pre-contemplation, you know, people who are not even thinking, I'm just related to the fitness industry and health here, like people who are not even thinking about training, they don't even want to go on a diet. And those are the people who need to be what we call problem aware. You know, they need to be told that, listen, there's a potential issue here. But what happens is, as you say, people are reactive instead of proactive. So they find out, oh, do you know what? You've got diabetes. Oh, fuck, maybe I should do something about this. You know, and it's that reactive nature. And then,
you know what as well? Do you know, sorry to cut in because this is really important. I grew up in Cookstown in County Tyrone. And I used to get the bus from the middle of the town to Dungannon in the morning. And then I used to come back into Cookstown from Dungannon in the afternoon, in the evening. At the weekends, I go home and I run and cycle at my mum's around the town and stuff out in the country. And to do that journey today, you have to pass a KFC at the bottom of the town and a fucking McDonald's. Twice. Whenever I'm running on a Saturday and I'm running past McDonald's, all the kids are in playing the iPads. The world is broken, man.
Yeah.
There's a pandemic going on right now around food, and this is why this discussion is really, really important. And this is why I think, you know, people who are on a plant-based nutrition and don't die of malnutrition and do endurance events and share information around how healthy it might be and all of the pros that come with the discipline of adhering to those kinds of things, I think is worth sharing. It just makes me very, very sad, like, to see how lazy we've all become as a society, how undisciplined we all are, how I talk to people and say, look, you know, you need to exercise, you need to eat well, and then they go home and say, fuck that, like, you know. That's it.
It's too much effort. It is for a lot of people, and that was one of the points I was getting at with, you know, the overweight vegetarian vegans. For me, it comes down to, you know, I think it's been proven, thermodynamics, calories in versus calories out. I know that's a very, very simplistic way to look at it away from health, but there is people who are just not willing to do the work, and they want most people won't do the work. Yeah. I mean, Rich Roll says it all comes down to, your whole life comes down to what you put in your plate. Now, that's a massive statement, but he's basically saying that it all comes down to, I mean, how many times, if all of us know a petrol station somewhere that sells bad fuel. So how many times will you go there? So you'll go once and the car will fucking stop going. And then you go, fuck him, I'm not going back to your man ever again. He's selling shite fuel. But every single day, I mean, the root of all of our illnesses isn't how we're feeling. I mean, Stephen Nolan and radio shows are coming down with conversations about waiting lists. And they're talking about, we need more money for the waiting list. Whereas we need more money to build more hospitals, because at the rate of going right now, there isn't going to be enough fucking hospitals to keep all these people who are constantly getting sick. Because the fact of the matter is, and this is really nail on head stuff now, is that everybody you meet now is getting sick. They've got a mental health problem. They've got some form of condition. I mean, MS in Northern Ireland and the UK is exploding. Cancer is exploding. Autism is exploding. Addiction is exploding. And why is this? And there's a lot of good work done. There's a lot of good podcasts. There's a lot of information out there to suggest that it's our lifestyles of what we're eating and the lack of movement and that kind of thing. And that's a real heavy one, but that's ultimately where I'm at the moment, is trying to work all that out. And I listened to an incredible podcast by Zach Bush and Rich Roll about 2 weeks ago on that whole discussion,
which was just mind blowing. So I mean, I'm only just starting out.
As you were saying there, it has to be. I think it has to be hard hitting, because when it comes to people's health, if you go in with a soft approach, they're not going to listen, and they need to be told the cold hard truth. And you know, I loved Cancer UK's recent ads. You know, I don't know if you've seen it. It says OB and then there's two little things. So they're more or less predicting obesity is a cause for cancer. And I don't think, you know, the scientific research isn't just there yet, but we do know that being overweight causes illness. Like it's, you know, if you have someone who's lean and healthy, they're less likely to contract diseases. Forget about the fucking genetic factors. They're less likely, you know, we look at epigenetics, you know, environmental factors, as you say, food, nutrition, toxins that we maybe take in, but they do need the cold hard truth. They need to be told, like, listen, your health is your fucking priority. It's not my priority. It's not the NHS's priority. You need to get educated on it, because there's obviously the people who are out there, they're not doing a good enough job. So it's your job to then find out. You know what I mean? So I think that hard hitting thing is essentially what a lot of people need. Your books, so you have two books. You have Attitude is Everything and your new book, Ironmen. You know, give us a little bit of information about those.
Yeah, so the first book I wrote about 2013, and that was really, it was part of my own sort of healing process. I just felt compelled, because I was starting to do well. I was starting to, as I was exercising more, I noticed my symptoms. I was getting stronger. I was still on the drugs at the time, but I had done a couple of marathons. So I wrote that book, and it was really to try and give people hope that, you know, you can still go on and do some things, and you can reverse this thing with exercise and all the rest of it. So that book went on Amazon, and thankfully it's been really well reviewed. It's helped people, it's changed lives. So that's all good stuff. And then about 6 months ago, I released my second book, which is Ironmen Against All Odds. And that's really a book about the Ironman journey in 2015, where I set myself 6 challenges in 6 months, which was to run a couple of marathons, a couple of triathlons, a half Ironman and an Ironman in 6 months. And I just wanted to talk about that process and talk about the event, the nutrition program that I was on, the training program, that experience. I researched, I mean, one of the things that I'm big into is doing some research and work into anything that you do. And I didn't see really, Paddy Joe, any books at that time who were for people. I mean, Ironman's a massive brand. It's a company that I'm really fond of. It's an incredible experience. Everything they do well. Whenever they come into a town, they just take it over. There's thousands of people at the event. There's thousands of, it's just a fantastic community. But by writing that book, I wanted to write it for people who were thinking about doing the Ironman as a challenge. As someone, I'm a social Ironman. It's not something I take overly seriously, even though I come across quite serious. But I'm not looking to win. I don't do it in time. You know, I don't pressurize myself. I'll finish when I finish, but I'll push myself as hard as I can to get to the finish line. So no, that was a good experience. And I released the book about 4 or 5 months ago, actually about 10 months ago. And then I only released the audio version about 2 months ago. So that whole self-publishing process, there's lots of people out there. You might want to do this as well, is to write a book. And do you get a publisher? Do you self-publish? So it was a great experience. The book's been well received. I didn't write the book for money. I've got some friends who have written books before. And if you want to make some money, don't write a book, you know, do something else. But that book and the books that I have and the audio, it's basically, it's a signpost. It's something that I can hand to people. I actually give a lot of books away. I send it to random people. And I'm very proud of it. It was an experience that enriched me and helped me, and it's now helping others. It's a long tail that won't go out of date. So I've had a fantastic response to it, Paddy Joe, and I'm very proud of it. So it's done and dusted. I just move on to the next one.
Awesome. We'll wrap it up there, Conor. So where can we find out more information about yourself, about obviously some of the events you're maybe covering, your books and stuff?
Yeah, so you'll get me on. I'm on most of the platforms. So I'm on Twitter. Just stick my name in. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. You can connect with me online. You can send me an email. I'll always come back to you. So yeah, I'm pretty approachable, and you'll always get me back in a quick time frame. So
Awesome. Again, Conor, thank you for your time. It's been great chatting to you. I always plan to have these for like an hour, and they just go on because I just love talking. I love listening to the people we have on here. So, again, guys, if you've liked this, please share it. If there is any AMS sufferers out there, again, get in touch with Conor, and I'm sure he'd be happy to help you. The benefit of his experience, and just give us a rating on iTunes and stuff as well. Is like we say with our mission statement, educate and impacting people. The more people that can hear this, the more people that can be impacted, and hopefully it's not those social media 10-15 minute attention span ones. So again, thank you very much, Conor. I appreciate your time. I know it's a little bit late and your lights are going out. But yeah,
with the pay in the meter here. Okay guys, so thanks for watching today, and just one more thing before we go. If you got value from what you just listened to and you get value from the show, then simply pay it forward by sharing. Thank you very much.
Yeah.